Well, I guess Andrew Berry is not playing around this offseason. He had a huge signing before day one of free agency started, an illegal tampering period. It's pretty much as official as it can get. The Browns have signed Josh Johnson the third, the probably third best ranked safety in all of football last year. Definitely the most well-rounded safety, 26 years old, 3 years, $11 million per year on like what, 33 million on total. So this is a tremendous deal. This is a tremendous signing by Andrew Berry. But what are the inner workings of this? How is this going to affect the team? And what does this mean for the rest of free agency? Well, let's talk about that. But before I do, I want to make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload a ton of content coming out for free agency, the draft, training camp, all of this stuff. And then, of course, the regular season. So you want to make sure you're locked in here. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Also want to give a shout out to the patreon.com dog check tier members. And as always, I start with Michael Matique, Rob Farron, Kyle Stouffer, Lukey from Munich, David Roth, J Guy 101, Musty Taco, Joe Bobby, Keith Kirkhack, Brad Calbo, Daylon W, James McGinty, Arenda Hall, Rex Kaufman, Chad Gimme, David Molinado, Andrew Sadejo, Dylan Hill, Josh Bendor, Eric Green, Jaleel Salim Jr., Martha Krusna, Mark M, TJ Showman, Stuart Moore, Bobo Regretti, Anthony O, David Arndt, Robert Jermaine Jr., Dave Mike May, John Cummings, Yo-Yo, Fight 3074, Andrew Hirsch, Hundo Magnifico, Paul Wilcox, Curtis Bayer, Batman, Rush Sharir, Barack Kumar, John Alver, Beerman 069, Masayua, Buds of Roland, James Nemo, Mac House, Reeve Hertz, Philip Wilcoxon, Marie Vivert, CK, Keith Anderson, Sean Barron, Gagus Pisano, Dom Gazzulo, Nick Nasty, Ian Whitaker, Colin 216, Anthony Latham, Christian, Matt Bond, Dave Strong, Michael Stone, Soul Train, Charles Work, Billy, Michael Holden Acton, Moose Gentry, Austin Z, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Wolf, IT Rex, Greg Ehlers, Austin Bolin, Jesus Serrano, Chris Fones, Picktown Brown Backers, Liam Freeland, Matt Lloyd, Mark Kahn, Max Out Dojo, and Water Bear Marketing. Again, guys, thank you so much for the support. It means a ton. It really does help me get through the off season, whether you're subscribed, notified, or on the Patreon. I appreciate all of it. So again, guys, thank you. Now let's talk about Josh Johnson and how he's going to help the Browns. So this is going to be a little bit less structured than my videos normally are. I'm just trying to get out all of my thoughts on this Josh Johnson signing because there honestly is just a ton of thoughts to kind of mince through when you think about what this means. The first thing is the contract, right? If that's accurate, 3 years, $11 million average per year. We don't know how the cap hits are going to specifically hit. Maybe they take a lesser cap hit this year for more guaranteed money. I don't know exactly what the deal is with that. So I don't know how much cap space the Browns currently have, but it seems like it's anywhere from about 13 to 14 million, give or take, a cut here or there. So they're in still a good spot to go out and get some guys, some supplementary guys, but I think they're done getting there. Now, again, I didn't think they were going to get Josh Johnson, so take this with a grain of salt, but I don't think they're going to get any huge, like, big name guys, you know, like $12, $13 million a year guys. They're going to want some cap space to kind of roll over into the next year. But that being said, if Josh Johnson's the big signing, that's a pretty big deal. Josh Johnson at $11 million for the next 3 years, that's a bargain now. That's going to be a massive bargain by the end of that deal. You know, this is somebody who was talked about as one of the best safeties in football, young guy on his second team. This is a guy who could have easily got $14, $15 million from a team, but he came to Cleveland because he felt like they was a contender, or they are a contender. So that's interesting, right? That's a perspective change from the rest of the league, how they view Cleveland. You look at a team like Cincinnati, they just had to overpay massively, in my opinion, for Trey Henderson. About like $14, $15 million a year for him when he's had one good year. So you look at teams like that in Cincinnati's place where they're still having to overpay. Cleveland's not in that spot to where if they don't want to overpay, they don't really have to yet. There's times where it doesn't work out. You don't get J.J. Watt, but, you know, they have their number. Andrew Berry seems to have his number, and he seems to be pretty good at negotiating guys down to that number, or at least making a convincing pitch for them to stay here or come here at this number. I mean, you just look at the roster, and I think that's the one thing you can definitely give Andrew Berry a ton of credit for is his ability to negotiate and relationship build, because there's a lot of things on this roster that would be issues with people who do not have great people skills at that general management position. This is why one of the problems with John Dorsey was he didn't have people management skills, and that led to a lot of guys just being unhappy early in their contracts. You look at a situation like Odell, where he's just basically out of guaranteed money on a deal that's pretty mid-range now for a top wide receiver, and he's not really complaining about that cap number. Neither is Jarvis. You know, they're working things out here with the cap. They're working things out here with these players. It seems like everybody knows that they have the opportunity to build something special, and it seems like Andrew Berry is doing his best to convince everybody to stay in line with that. So you got to give credit where credit's due. You bring in a guy like Josh Johnson at $11 million a year. Like, that is such a bargain. I thought 14 would be the floor for Josh Johnson. You got him for 11, and you got him for 3 years. So what does that mean for the rest of the defensive back room? Well, for 2021, it means you're going to have one of the smartest back ends of the secondary probably in pro football. Ronnie Harrison's one of the smartest safeties in football, or one of the more intelligent kind of chess master safeties, I like to call them, at the position. And Josh Johnson's right up there with him. Again, both guys have kind of a similar background in that Josh Johnson's a lot more versatile. He can play more free safety. He can play some slot. He can go up against tight ends. He can even stand in there and play in the box a lot if you really wanted him to. And Grant Delpit, let's not forget, was the guy when it came to calling plays at LSU at, like, I think his freshman or at the end of his freshman year. So this is not somebody who does not have the potential to be one of the smarter guys. And when you have three of those guys who are not only that talented, that athletic, with also good size, but also a great grasp on the game, working with each other, developing with each other, that's a great recipe. The Browns run a ton of cover 3. This is going to help with the cover 3. They're going to have a true center fielder. And, you know, for 2021, this is going to be fine. Now, what does this mean for the years onward? Well, it means two things. One, you have an insurance policy for Grant Delpit. He tore his Achilles. You don't know if he's going to be Grant Delpit anymore. If he is Grant Delpit, awesome. You have a number of places you could put Grant Delpit on this defense, and he could be productive. A number of places you could put Ronnie Harrison on this defense. A number of places you could put Josh Johnson at third. So there's really not an issue of how you can get all three of these guys on the field. They're both insanely talented, very athletic, and very versatile. Three things the Browns defense desperately needs. They'll find a way to get on the field one way or another, especially in Joe Woods' defensive back heavy defense. And honestly, I think they probably still need to add a nickel corner if I'm just shooting straight with you guys. So that is the one situation where I'm not worried about how these three can coexist. But what it does mean is that they have that flexibility. So if Grant Delpit works out, and so does Josh Johnson, and maybe Ronnie Harrison works out so good that his number is going to be way more expensive than you can really afford to keep, you can let Ronnie Harrison go next year when he comes up and just keep Josh Johnson and Grant Delpit, and you'll be in a great position because those are two really young, athletic defensive backs. If it doesn't work out with Grant Delpit, you can re-sign Ronnie Harrison. You'll still have Grant Delpit, and then you can have Josh Johnson as well under contract, at least for the next 3 years. They are in a good space for the safeties. I think they're pretty much done with the safety position. They can draft a couple of guys if they want to, but again, the draft's probably going to be more best player available. So what this means for the future of that secondary, it means the future is bright. They need to stay healthy, but the future is bright. You got Denzel Ward here. We know how good Denzel Ward is, but you know, we know that sometimes, almost every season, he seems to miss 4 to 5 games a year, and that becomes kind of a sticking point. Now, a lot of guys, especially early in their career, have had that issue of being able to stay on the field and fixed it later on in their career. I don't see any reason why Denzel Ward can't fix it, but I cannot rely on that. Greedy Williams is an interesting case because in college, he never missed a game, but in NFL, he's missed a ton of games with injuries, just here and there. Weird things seem to be popping up with him. He's coming back off a shoulder injury, but he's still a young player that the Browns have a ton of faith in. You can bring back Terrence Mitchell on a cheaper deal if you want to. You still got some pieces there, and you can go go out and draft some young DBs as well. Linebacking, I don't see as much as an issue, but the one thing that people are going to be kind of concerned about when they look at all the guys who have already gone to free agency is that pass rushing position. I've already seen this on Twitter where a ton of guys are hitting me up. Hey, Quincy, what's going on? Why aren't they signing these guys? And I want everybody to just kind of relax. I never thought they were going to be seriously able to sign Bud Dupree or sign, Yannick Ngakoue or these guys who are going for like $16 million a year, because that's just, when you look at the Browns with $24 million in available cap space, $16 million a year, that's just a price tag that they're not going to be willing to pay. And if they were willing to pay, you would have seen some things happen where they would have tried harder to get rid of Njoku's $5 million for this year, $6 million for this year. They would have tried to restructure some guys. You would have saw the active effort in the front office to try to restructure and create a ton of cap space in order to do those things and to bring those signings. And the fact that they didn't do that told me that they weren't going to go big on some of these pass rushers. I think they're going to hit that secondary market pretty hard, though. I think, guys like Justin Houston, who might still be available after 2 or 3 days of free agency. Jadeveon Clowney, who might be available at a really cheap price after 2 or 3 days of free agency. He's also a target they could hit. I know people have their feelings about Jadeveon Clowney, but we just look at this from football perspective. He's probably the best fit you can get out there in free agency for somebody to be opposite of Myles Garrett, an excellent run defender, really athletic, and a big guy. It's just the dependability issues are there with Jadeveon. But, if you can get him for under $10 million a year, you probably have to do that if you're Andrew Berry. So we'll see what shakes there. And also, again, there's going to be a ton of guys who just shake loose at the end of this free agency period because of cap casualties or teams trying to save money or teams trying to clear up space to officially sign some of these free agents. So some more guys are going to become available, and there's still a decent amount of good defensive ends that are available. You don't want to be caught up in trying to just get a name, a day one name, as the opposite guy for Myles Garrett, because you end up overpaying. Do any of us really, after watching Bud Dupree, only play well on contract years, really want to give him $16 million a year? Same thing with Yannick Ngakoue. Same thing with Matt Judon. Like, I like Matt Judon, but not for $16 million a year. The prices just were super expensive for these day one pass rushers. Since all that money has gone, New England has pretty much spent all the free agency money. There's going to be some opportunities to get some guys on the cheap here later on. I think that's what Andrew Berry's circling. And I think the one thing we can say about Andrew Berry is that he has a price in mind for a free agent, and he will stick to that price. And I think he's doing that same thing here. He has a price in mind. He's going to stick to that price, and he's confident he can find somebody in that price range. Now, I don't want this to go so far that they're looking for Myles Garrett's running mate in the draft. I'm not a fan of that. But, I think wait a couple of days, give it a week or two. I think they're going to have some options available to themselves that are going to be very attractive in the coming weeks for some very decent prices. So, again, patience is the key. This free agency period is not going to be like the last two where they're going to go all out blitz, sign like 3-4 top guys and bring them on the roster. This is not that kind of situation anymore. This is going to be more of a marathon when it comes to free agency. It's going to be, hey, we might get Josh Johnson, but we're going to wait and see what happens here and here. We're going to wait and see what happens with the nickel cornerback slot. We're going to wait and see what we can free up. We're going to wait and see what kind of moves the Browns can make. They still have a ton of draft picks for this draft that I don't expect them to keep. Keep an eye on what they're going to do with that kind of stuff. So the Browns have a handful of ways they can operate and move, still get an opposite pass rusher. So I would not panic about that. I don't think that it's going to be imminent. I don't think like a Jadeveon Clowney $13 million a year signing is like imminent for like today or anything like that. But I do think they'll figure something out. They'll get somebody in free agency. If they do decide to go young guy, they're probably going to get an established veteran. So maybe Melvin Ingram or Justin Houston to pair with a rookie or something like that. They still have a ton of options available to them. That's the only point that I'm trying to get through. But this Josh Johnson signing is a big deal. 3 years, $11 million. That's a huge tip to the cap on Andrew Berry, able to get somebody on a very decent number, not overpaying anymore, which is wild for one of the young better safeties in the NFL. So that's my thoughts on the Josh Johnson situation. What do you guys feel about it? Are you excited for the signing or are you disappointed? Let me know in the comment section down below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.